Have you ever stopped to think about what's happening inside you, right now, at a microscopic level? It's wild. Inside every single one of your cells, there's a logistics network so complex, so efficient, it makes our global shipping companies look like they're playing with toy trucks. Today, we're going to unpack this incredible story of protein trafficking, the cell's own internal postal service. And trust me, you'll see just how this tiny system literally keeps you alive. So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the huge logistics problem every cell has to solve. Then we'll dive into the amazing postal service it came up with. We're even going to learn how to read the molecular zip code and meet the special delivery escort that makes it all work. And finally, we'll see just how unbelievably flawless this whole system really is.
All right, let's start at the beginning. To really appreciate the solution, we've got to understand the problem. So, what is the massive challenge that every single one of your cells is up against, every second of the day?
Well, try to imagine this. You have to deliver trillions of packages to trillions of different addresses all at the same time, and you cannot make a single mistake. That's what our cells are doing constantly. It is an operation of mind-boggling complexity, and if it messes up, life as we know it just stops. So how on earth does it pull it off? Okay, think of it like this. Every cell is a busy factory, and proteins? They're the workers. They are the builders, the messengers, the cleanup crew, they do everything. But what good is a worker if they show up to the wrong job site, right? A protein that's supposed to be fixing DNA is totally useless if it ends up floating outside the cell. Location is absolutely everything.
So how does the cell tackle this enormous logistics problem? It didn't invent tiny trucks or drones. Nope, it evolved something way more elegant. Its very own internal mail system, which we call the secretory pathway.
This whole system, the secretory pathway, is basically a four-step assembly line. You can see it here. It starts with making the protein, then it moves to packaging, then sorting, and finally, delivery. So come on, let's follow one of these protein packages on its amazing journey.
Our protein's adventure begins right here. It's being built on a little machine called a ribosome, which is attached to this maze-like structure called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. You can just call it the ER. Think of the ER as the main factory floor. Now, as the protein is being built, it's immediately threaded right into the ER, kind of like feeding a thread through the eye of a needle. Okay, from the ER, our protein gets bundled up into a tiny bubble called a transport vesicle. This little bubble then travels to the Golgi apparatus, which is basically the cell's main post office and quality control center. You can almost think of it as a gift wrapping station. As the protein moves through the different layers of the Golgi, it gets some final chemical tweaks, it gets folded into its perfect 3D shape, and most importantly, it gets sorted for its final destination.
And finally, our protein is all packed up and ready to ship. And this is where the system's flexibility really shines. Some of these vesicles, acting like little delivery trucks, will head to the cell's outer edge to drop their cargo outside the cell. Others might just be put into storage for later. And some will deliver their contents to other places inside the cell, like the lysosome, which is the cell's recycling plant.
But wait a minute. This raises a huge question, right? With millions of proteins being made all the time, how does the Postal Service know where each one is supposed to go? How does it actually read the address? Well, the answer lies in a tiny, ingenious tag that's built right into the protein itself. The key to this whole operation, the big aha moment, came from a scientist named Günter Blobel, way back in the 1970s. He figured out that proteins carry their own built-in address label, a short little string of amino acids that he called a signal sequence. This signal sequence is, and this is not an exaggeration, a molecular zip code. It's not a sticker they slap on at the end, it's woven right into the protein's structure from the very beginning. And that short little code contains all the information the cell's machinery needs to get that protein to the right place. And just look at how specific these zip codes are. On this table, you can see that a protein going to the nucleus has one sequence. But if it's headed for the mitochondria, the code is totally different. Each and every destination has its own unique address, written in the language of amino acids. It's incredible. And it's not just the sequence that matters, but the structure too. Let's take a closer look at the zip code for the ER. It's got a very specific anatomy. One end has a positive charge, the middle part is made of amino acids that hate water, we call those hydrophobic, and there's even a little pre-marked spot where the tag will eventually get snipped off. This unique structure is like a key that only certain cellular machines can recognize.
All right, so we've got a package, and it has a zip code.
Now what do we need? We need a postal worker. We need a courier who can actually read that zip code and get the package into the system.
So let me introduce you to the Signal Recognition Particle, or SRP for short. This little guy is the cell's elite special delivery escort. Its job is incredibly precise. It just patrols the cell, and the second it spots a new protein with that specific ER zip code, it latches on and personally escorts the entire protein factory, the ribosome, right to the front door of the ER. So the SRP's job is this perfect little four-step dance. First, it spots and binds to the signal. Second, and this is super clever, it hits the pause button on protein production. Third, it docks the whole operation at the exact right address on the ER. And finally, it lets go and heads off to find the next package. It's a perfect handoff, every single time. Let's see what that actually looks like.
Okay, here's step 1 in action. You can see the protein chain being built, and the zip code is the first part to pop out. Our special escort, the SRP, immediately recognizes it and grabs on. That's step 1. Now for step 2, this binding action actually pauses the whole process. And this is so important. It stops the protein from getting finished and released in the wrong part of the cell.
Now on to step 3, the docking. With everything on pause, the SRP acts like a little tugboat, guiding the entire ribosome to a specific docking station on the ER membrane. It lines everything up perfectly with a channel, getting it all ready for the final handoff. And here's the final step, the release. Once it's docked, the SRP lets go and zooms off to find another package. Protein production starts back up, and the growing chain is now fed directly into the ER. And as soon as it's inside, a little pair of molecular scissors called a signal peptidase snips off the zip code. It's not needed anymore. The job is done. The package is officially in the mail system.
So let's just take a step back and put all those pieces together. When you look at the big picture, you can really see the sheer elegance and, frankly, the genius of this whole process.
It's just a beautiful, self-organizing system. Every protein package is made with its own built-in zip code. A specialized escort, the SRP, reads that code and delivers it to the main post office, the ER. From there, it moves through the Golgi sorting center and then gets shipped out in little delivery trucks to its final, correct address.
This system works with breathtaking precision, trillions and trillions of times a second, inside you, right now. But that leads to one last, really crucial question. The master blueprint for all these zip codes is in our DNA. So, what happens when a genetic mutation creates a typo? What happens when just one package gets sent to the wrong address, or maybe never even gets delivered at all? Well, the consequences, from things like cystic fibrosis to high cholesterol, can be devastating. And it all comes down to the perfect functioning of this incredible, microscopic postal service.